Anybody here paint? Got any painters? Any artists? I'm not talking about paint. I'm not talking about painting canvases. Although that is paint. You're right. That's paint. I should have been more specific. Anybody here draw as paint on canvas? Are you good? I mean, can you draw? Can you draw? He's good.
He is actually pretty good.
Really good. Good. I've never seen your work. I can't draw a lick. I really can't. I'm not an artist, and though it's intriguing to me how someone can take a pencil or a brush and start to create something on canvas. I've never, besides on TV or internet, one of those short little things, I've never actually watched anybody paint something from start to finish. Pam's mom's an artist, and she does some really nice work. But I've never actually watched somebody, basically because it takes a lot of time, right? It takes a lot of time for them to finish the picture, and well, I'm not a patient person, I'm just going to be honest with you. I like to stay on patient, and I'd like to be more patient, but I'm not patient enough to sit there and watch somebody paint a whole thing. Although I have, like I said, watched some folks on TV or on the internet. Maybe you've seen some of these folks that can go in there and just, in a few minutes, just start drawing lines and dabbing and painting and stuff. And within a few minutes, they have, created a beautiful landscape or something of that nature. Definitely something more than a kindergartner would put out, but maybe not the detailed masterpiece that some other artists have put out, right? And while it's intriguing, and I'll sit there and watch it, stroke by stroke, I can never tell what it's going to be. They start painting it, and if you ask me at stroke 5 or stroke 50 or stroke 100, what's that picture going to be? I probably couldn't tell you. I could guess. I think it's going to be a mountain, or maybe it's going to be, a river, an ocean. I don't know. I have to wait till it's what? Finished before I can tell exactly what it's going to be. But it always intrigues me how they can take a blank canvas, just a white piece of cloth stretched out, and they can add to it, and stroke by stroke it becomes something different, doesn't it? And no matter where you stop in that process, one thing for sure is you can never go back to the blank canvas that it was, right? You can only go forward, right? And that's because it's a what? It's a work in progress, isn't it? It's something that a painter or artist is working on. It makes me think that we are a lot like those canvases, those blank canvases. And God's working on a masterpiece in each and every one of us. Stroke by stroke, He's adding to us daily, right? And hopefully, stroke by stroke, we're becoming more Christ-like. We're becoming more of what God would have us to be and less of what we are. That's our hope. Anyway, right? But one thing's for sure is that judging us today, we can't tell what the final picture is going to look like, is it? Do we? If you had sat me down 20 years ago, or 30 years ago, or 40 years ago, or 50 years ago, and said, you're going to be standing in Ledbetter Christian Church, preaching a sermon, or serving there for 5 years. No, I'm not. That's probably not the picture you got if you looked at me that long ago, right? But yet, if you look at me today, it's not hard to imagine that I'm actually here preaching a sermon at Ledbetter Christian Church, right? Because I'm a what? Work in progress, right? Do you usually, how many of you read? You read? Any readers? I'm not a big reader, but I like to read sometimes. And the thing that determines whether I read a book or not is how that first chapter goes. Any of you like that? If that first chapter don't catch my attention, I just put it down. I'm done. I mean, that's it. One chapter. I got a lot of one-chapter books I read. And I said, but the truth of the matter is I miss out on a lot because I don't go to the end and see what it actually turns out. Today we're going to be talking about one of God's masterpieces, someone who made the Heroes Hall of Fame that lists in Hebrews 11, right? She's only one of 2 women to make it, Sarah and her. They're actually named by name. That's quite an honor, isn't it? To be a hero of faith, be considered one of the great women of the Bible, someone who's demonstrated great faith. She's also, I mean, it's great, but it's really kind of shocking when you consider what her profession was before she realized that the God of Israel was the one true God, right? That she was a prostitute, a lady in the evening. And, you know, when we hear that, you know, we might get our shocked face on that. You know, that's the face I usually used to call foul on me in basketball. That shocked face. Because you mean that one of the heroes of the Bible was a prostitute? But then when we look at the rest of the list, you have David on there who was an adulterer. Right? Who sent the husband of the woman he had an affair with to the front of the line to know that he would surely be killed just so he wouldn't be found out. Right? Yeah, Moses, he murdered somebody, buried him in the sand, ran off, right? So what I'm saying is that a lot of the heroes of the Bible, as a matter of fact, a lot of the characters we see in the Bible kind of have what? Shaky backgrounds, don't they? They're imperfect people, right? Can you relate to that? Maybe you didn't murder anybody, or maybe you haven't had an affair, but you can definitely deal with imperfection, right? We at least know somebody that's imperfect, right? Don't look around. Don't be looking at your spouses. This isn't the time for that. But we definitely know there's a lot of imperfect people in this church right here. Agreement? Somebody say amen. 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 I mean, I'll be the first one. I'm definitely imperfect, definitely a work in progress. So, it's not surprising that God is able to use someone who's been a prostitute, to do great things with, right? Does that shock anybody? Shouldn't. It really shouldn't, because a lot of folks that we read the Bible show their imperfections. And I guess that in a way that's a good thing, because it kind of is something we relate to. And something that kind of draws us in. We say, yeah, I could be there. I could be that person. Maybe not a person. I'm definitely a sinner, and God doesn't count. I don't think He numbers sin. I think sin is sin, right? And when we fall short, we fall short. Whether it's big or small, you still miss the mark, right? So we shouldn't judge other people's sin as being greater than ours or less than ours. Or you know, a lot of times we want to say, yeah, I'm a sinner, but they're a worse sinner, right? They're worse. I'm a sinner, but you want to meet somebody who's really bad. You will need to meet so-and-so, right? Sin is sin, folks. Sin is sin. If we miss the mark, we miss the mark. You know, we need to own up to our own shortcomings or our frailties. But we meet Rahab today in today's scripture we're starting reading. The Israelites have crossed over the bank, right? They've already had a couple battles and won a couple battles, and Joshua has sent out some spies. He said, go spy out the land and definitely check out Jericho. Because we're definitely going to be going into Jericho. I need you to check that out. And we find the spies are in a harlot's house, a house of ill repute, I guess you would say, of Rahab. Now, how they got there, I don't know. You know, one of the things that popped in my mind is, what are you doing in the house of prostitution? You're supposed to be out there spying on the land. And so I don't know how they got there, but somehow they got there, and I guess when we get to heaven, we can ask God about that. So, what are those spies doing there anyway? But it's either, I think it falls on that don't ask, don't tell situation. But anyway, they're there, right? So they're in this house of ill repute, this house of the harlot, and the king gets word. You know, there's some spies hanging out over at the harlot Rahab's place, you know, they come here to check us out, we need to get them. So he sends some people over there to retrieve them, right? There's a knock on the door, you know, and Rahab answers the door. And we were reading in a Bible study that we go to, we were reading a book this week, and it was talking about, it was Max Lucado and his description of how the harlot Rahab answered the door. He said he pictured her coming to the door in a red dress, you know, cutting low with a cigarette in her hand and a martini, you know. What can I do for you boys? You know, and that's Max Lucado. I'm just giving you a little Max Lucado version there. But however she was dressed or whatever she had in her hand, she comes to the door and she says, what can I do for you? And they say, well, you know, you got some men here and they're spies and we need them. She goes, oh, well, you know, they were here. They were here, but they're gone. They left through the gate before the gate, before dusk. They're gone. But you know what? If you hurry up, you can catch them. Because they ain't been gone that long. And so the men what? They take off after them. They leave. And as soon as they get out the gate's closed. And she goes up because she had actually hidden the men where? On the roof. On the roof. Rahab made a decision there that could have been very costly to her. And you got to wonder why. She wasn't an Israelite.
Was she a Canaanite?
She was Canaanite. She belonged to, easy y'all. But she was there, and these were her people, right? These are her people. This is her nation. She was part of that city, right? She worshiped their gods. So why in the world would she put everything at risk and say, oh, they're not here. I sent them off. They're upstairs, go get them. She could have very easily said that. That would have been the easy thing to do, right? But she made a choice, right? And she made a choice based on some very specific information. And we see that starting in chapter 9. Because what's she say in chapter 9? She says, I know that the Lord has given you the land, given you this land. In other words, she's heard stories. One of the things about being a harlot is you probably entertain quite a variety of travelers. Wouldn't you think? Come through town, traveling through. And she's heard the stories. She's heard the stories of the Israelites and their God. She knows about their God delivering them from Egypt. She knows about the parting of the Red Sea. She knows about the battles that have taken place already. She knows about their victories. And she knows that their God must be the God. Because He has delivered them time and time and time again. As a matter of fact, she recognizes in verse 11, she says, the Lord your God is the God of heaven above and in the earth beneath. In other words, your God is the God of everything. Everything in the heavens, everything here on earth, and I recognize that. And because she recognized that, she changed her perspective. She changed where she stood. She let go of the old, because in taking sides with the spies, she was basically turning her back on her nation, on her people, on the religions that were practiced there, on her way of life. She had turned everything old. She had turned her back on it, and she was looking for something, what? New. Right? A new people. A new God. Maybe a new life. But she makes that decision, and she's forever changed. She makes a deal with the spies, and she asks for her life and the life of her family to be spared, right? And we didn't read that far down into it, but they said they will do it, but she has to abide by 3 things. And they give her a list of 3 things, and she does those 3 things. And indeed, her family is spared when the Israelites conquered Jericho. As a matter of fact, her family is the only family spared. And her life changed forever. So much so that there's a reason she's in that Hall of Fame. Because she got married to a man named Solomon. They had a son. His name was Boaz. And Boaz had a son, Obed. And Obed had a son named Jesse. And Jesse had a son named David, that we know as King David. You see, if you go back, if you read the genealogy in the book of Matthew, the 1st chapter, where it first starts out, and I'm going to say to you all that genealogy for time and for sleep purposes, but because the only thing more boring about genealogy is reading somebody else's genealogy. But But it's the whole line of David. The whole line of David is traced back to Rahab. She was David's great-grandmother. Isn't that something? Isn't that a shock? Now you can put on that shock face. All right. But it just goes to show, no matter where you've been and what your sin is, or where you've been in life, that when you accept God as your God, He can do some wonderful things with you, right? People can be changed, right? God can make a masterpiece out of a blank piece of canvas. God can even make a masterpiece out of something that looks really messed up, right? I don't know, have any of you ever seen, have you ever watched, I think it's called Ink or something like that, but it's about tattoo artists. Have you ever seen that? And one of the things they had them do one time is, I'm not a tattoo person, but excuse me, there's an art form to it, for sure. And one time, sometimes they have them go in and take tattoos that are really messed up and try to make them beautiful. And it's really an art to see where they can take these messed up tattoos, these tattoos that were done by people who didn't know what they were doing or unprofessional. Maybe it's a girlfriend they had tattooed on their arm and they changed girlfriends and wives. That's really bad. But they have to change it, right? And it seemed like a really good idea at the time, but it really isn't a good idea. And so these artists go in and they change it and make something beautiful out of it, out of the mistakes. Isn't it funny how God can make something beautiful out of mistakes? Right? How God can take us in our brokenness and our frailties, and He can still use us and make masterpieces out of us. Do wonderful things with us. He's painting each and every one of you. Stroke by stroke. He's working on you. Where you are today isn't what you have to be tomorrow. Where you are today isn't where you have to be tomorrow. You need to know that. If you're stuck in something, God wants to hear about it. God can move you from where you are to where you need to be. It's just a prayer away. It's just a prayer away. But God changes us. We move step by step, day by day, to become different people. It reminds me of a story that was told by, it was a seminary professor, and he had on vacation with his wife from Oklahoma. They had gone to Gatlinburg, Tennessee. And they were eating breakfast at this restaurant, and they saw an older gentleman. He was making his way around, shaking hands with everybody, talking to everybody, kind of like we do here Sunday morning before, everybody walks around, talks to everybody. He was making his way around the restaurant, spending a little bit of time at each table. The professor turned to his wife and said, I hope he don't stop here. I hope he don't come up and talk to me. But guess what he did? He came up and talked to him and said, how you folks doing? They said, we're good. They said, well, where are you from? Oklahoma. Oh, that's great. What are you doing here? Well, we're on vacation. Oh, that's super. What do you do for a living? He said, I'm a seminary professor. He said, so you teach preachers to preach? He said, yep, that's what I do. He said, I got a story for you. He pulled up a chair, and the seminary professor was shaking his head like, not another preacher story. I just really don't need to hear another preacher story. But he sat down and he listened. And the gentleman said, look out that window. You see the base of that mountain over there? You see that mountain over there? So the base of that mountain, there was a young boy born years ago. And he was born to an unwed mother. And he had a tough life growing up. He said he would go to school or to the drugstore or the grocery store or anywhere he went, people always ask him, who's your daddy? Who's your daddy, boy? And you can imagine for an illegitimate son not to know who his father is, how embarrassing and how frustrating that must be. Everywhere you go, when people say, who's your daddy, boy? Whose are you? So he would avoid recess. He sat by himself at lunch. He would go to the store when there was the least amount of people there. He would even sneak into church after the sermon started, and he'd slip into the back, and he'd listen, and he'd slip out so nobody could stop him and ask him, who's your daddy, boy? He did that until one day a new preacher came to town. He said the new preacher was kind of quick on the benediction. He caught him off guard. Before he could slip out, the preacher had finished the benediction and was right there at the door. And as he was walking out, the preacher reached down and grabbed his hand and said, "How you doing, son? Who's your daddy?" Oh, the whole church got quiet. All the eyes were upon him. Maybe finally they were going to find out who this boy's daddy was. And the preacher sensed something wasn't right. He discerned that there was an awkwardness here. And he goes, I recognize you. The resemblance is uncanny. You're a child of God. That's who you are. He said, you have a great inheritance out there. You need to go out there and claim it. And a smile came across that boy's face. For the first time in a long time, that boy smiled. Because he realized who he was and who his daddy was. He was a child of God. He didn't hang his head no more. He didn't shy away from people anymore. As a matter of fact, he didn't mind people at all. Because now people would say, hey boy, who's your daddy? He said, well, don't you know me? I'm a child of God. I'm a child of God.
Amen.
He said, he said that boy was never the same. He said, ain't that a great story? And seminary professor said, that is a great story. He said, I appreciate you sharing. He said, no problem. He said, you have a great day. He took up his chair and started to walk away. He turned and said, if that preacher hadn't told me that years ago, I probably would never have grown up to be anything. I wouldn't have grown up to be anybody at all. I'm so glad that preacher told me that. And with that, he turned and he walked away. And the seminary professor was a little confused, and he called over the waitress. Come here. So she came over. He said, you know who that gentleman was that was just sitting here talking to us? She said, yeah. She said, everybody knows him. She said, that's the former governor of Tennessee, Ben Hoover. Don't we all need to be reminded from time to time that we're God's children? That we're all children of God. That we're all loved beyond our ability to give back that love. That we are His children. And He's working on us one step at a time. You're going to encounter some people when you leave here today, and you go out in the world this week, that need to be reminded, that need to be told they're a child of God, that they're loved. I don't know where they're at. I don't know where you're at. We're all at different places in our journey. We're all situated in different stations of life. And we're all going to meet people who are in different stations of life. But one thing's for sure, I think, is that we all need to be reminded, and sometimes we need to be told initially, that we're a child of God. And being a child of God, we are so loved. Loved beyond our comprehension. Loved beyond our ability to return. But what we can do is shine that love into somebody else's life. What we can do is make a difference in the people we encounter. We can let that love and that grace and that mercy that's been shined into our lives reflect into theirs. To be a difference maker. Right? We can all do that. And in doing so, I think we're serving a little bit as a paintbrush for God. As He paints that picture. As He completes that canvas. As He's bringing each and every one of us to be a completed masterpiece. We don't know how your story is going to end. I don't know how my story is going to end. But I know one thing for sure. When God's completed each and every one of you, when He's completed me, there'll be a masterpiece. And I look forward to that day. And I hope you do too. And all God's people said, Amen.